Alright YouTube, right, this is a video just going through basic ways of storing and looking after your dailies in winter. It's a little bit late because I've been really busy, so basically I've already chopped the dahlia off. This is the dahlia in the pot, basically cut to the base. Now the idea behind this is that dahlias are worse at handling the wet and the cold than they are just the cold. So the idea is if you've got in a pot, find somewhere slightly sheltered and that doesn't get any rain really, and just leave it overwintered there. Obviously if you live somewhere that goes down to -20, -30, then you're probably going to have to put the pot somewhere maybe sort of in a cool room in the house, or somewhere that it remains a lot hotter than that. But generally if you're sort of in temperatures that sort of go down to maybe -5 occasionally, they're probably alright outside in the pot, just somewhere sheltered where they won't get waterlogged. Alright, so that's the first bit of storing your dahlias. Cool. Right, next bit, this is for dahlias in the ground. Now the idea is to get some compost, cover it up so it's got like an inch or two of compost over it, so then the first inch or two get frozen as in the compost, and the dahlia itself is slightly underneath so it remains a little bit warmer to protect it from the temperature going really low and sort of going to freezing and sort of freezing the top of it. Obviously important thing with this as well, if your dahlias are planted somewhere that remains really wet, like heavy clay, and it's then going to get frozen, then you're probably best off just digging them up anyway. Unless you've got free draining soil, it's always best to dig your dahlias up, or yeah, so anyway, so we go across with this and get some dahlias sort of covered, just a brief example. Another thing, when you're doing your compost bags, always best to cut all the way along the top. Doing this is a pain for pouring it generally, so I didn't open this compost, I'd just like to say. But ideally, if you are going to open bag compost, open it all the way across, because ripping it, and also in terms of holding it over so slugs and snails can't get in, it's a lot harder. So anyway, I'll meet you over there in a second. Right, hello, right, we're at the dahlia. I've left a little bit of a stalk on it so you can see it, but obviously it goes a bit further down. It's been cut back, it's had a chance to dry off a little bit. Now we're going to chuck the compost over to give it a better chance of survival during sort of January, February time, which is generally the coldest time of the year for where we are in the world. Right, so here goes. All done. Now the next point of this, we're going to dig up the dahlias that I want some more of. So we're going to dig those up, I'm going to wash them down, show you what they look like, then show you how to cut them into sections, so then you can have maybe 3 or 4 dahlias from each dahlia you dig up. And then going forward in further videos, I'm then going to show you how to pot them up, grow them on, and then take cuttings of the ones you've done. And then obviously look after them all the way to the point when they're flowering and looking good in the autumn. Right, hello. Right, back again. Now this bit, we're going to dig up the first dahlia. There's another dahlia over there, but what I'm going to do, we just video this one. Now the idea behind this is you don't dig exactly where the dahlia is, because they tend to expand quite a lot, and you don't want to put loads of fog straight through the tuber. So the idea is I'm going to gently dig all the way around it to loosen it up, and then get it up and then put it in the tub. So if we now focus on the digging, and we try and get them up fairly quickly. Right, so they're dug up now. We're going to wash them and then start to separate them and go through a few things. Obviously it's the reason why I'm dressed so scrappily, because I'm just about to get covered in mud, but I'm not absolutely insane, so I'm going to wash them in warmish water inside so I don't freeze to death. Alright, so I'll meet you inside in a second. Right, hello, back again. Right, in the kitchen. Obviously you want a nice bucket without a leak in it for this. We're just using an old trug that's handles are broken. So we're just going to rinse this out, basically put some water in. It shouldn't be boiling hot, but obviously this time of year it's around, well, 1 or 2 degrees, so my fingers are pretty freezing and I don't want to stand outside any longer than I have to, so we're just going to rinse these out so we can see where everything is. Now, part of the reason for rinsing it out is, as well as getting the soil so you can see to separate it better, is if there's any insects in there that are planning on eating or damaging the dahlias, once you've rinsed it all out, we can see what's about and we can make sure there's nothing in there that we don't want there. Alright? So what I do, I'll leave the tap running, get it pretty full, because it's a lot easier once it's pretty full to then start washing all the mud off. And then I'll get the equipment and then go through how to separate it as well. If you're planning on following along and doing the same with yours, you'll need a pair of secateurs, a pair of scissors and some newspaper or something just to put down so you don't get mud everywhere. Alright? Right, this is the first little bit out. It's still a little bit grubby, but obviously it's a lot better than it was before. I've managed to lose the scissors already. Right, first thing, while we're going around it, is just to trim off. I don't know how well we can see on the camera, but we trim off all the longer bits of roots that are flying off everywhere. I might use the secateurs, they're a bit easier than using scissors for this bit. Right, and now I've got some bits out of the way, just going to stick it in the water, and, no, just a little bit still there, just try and knock a little bit more mud off. I think I've actually managed to get more mud on it again, never mind. Trim this off a bit. I'll try not to get the floor too dirty, but basically if I put this across, this top bit round here, and all round here is where it tends to shoot from. This is basically the brains of the plant. So if you're going to have a bit of this, which is what gives it its energy and its food, you also need a bit of this attached. So you can't just cut every single one of these off and think you've got 15 plants, because without the brain of the plant, it will just sit there and do nothing. So you need to make sure when cutting it that you've always got a piece of this or a piece of that or a piece of that for it to shoot. Alright, so what we do, I'm going to get the bread knife out, because I find that easiest to do. I'm going to cut through a couple of sections nice and slowly, and then show you how they look once they're cut. Alright? Right, back again. Given up on the saw, on the bread knife. I'm now trying to saw. This one's particularly tricky. Right, show it to the camera. Gives you a quick example. It's been cut, it's got a nice sort of round bit all the way around there so it can still shoot. It's got plenty of these on for food, so obviously have a look at that. Apart from giving it a bit of a better wash, that's going to produce quite a nice dahlia. Right, so we got our first bit done. Right, back again with the next bit, wash it up, taking care of most of the little rat tails on it, make it look a bit neater. Obviously this bit, you can see the stems on there where it's coming out. I'll just give this, the stems a trim. You can see the stems. Never obviously cut the stems so short that they literally snapped off, because it shoots from the base, so you don't want to make the stems too short, but obviously when you're cutting it you want to make sure that you haven't got the stems too long to make cutting it easier. Again, we're going to go through probably about this angle. It's got a nice bit for them to shoot here, it's got a nice bit to shoot here. I'm not going to cut them too small, so I'll just generally cut it from here to here and then turn it into two, just for a general sort of idea for people, so you can double up. Alright, another note, the biggest ones are normally what you call like the mother sort of thing of the plant. And in actual fact, if you end up chopping it up and the biggest one falls off, don't worry about it, because it's the little ones that come forward to make more food for the next years. So basically the small little ones are worth keeping hold of, so careful to keep as many of the tubers as possible. But in terms of the bigger tubers, they tend to be less important on the plant. Obviously this is a tuber, this is a tuber, so the smaller pieces are what's going to give you extra food and more flowers for the years to come. So try to make sure you try and keep hold of the little ones more importantly than some of the bigger ones. Alright, back to the saw instantly, because I think I need to sharpen the knife. This is still intact, so you've got plenty of space for it to reshoot for the following year, and you've got plenty of tubers attached to this to give it its food. So again, a good looking specimen. We're plonking him on the paper with the other one, and to show off, again, nicely cut. It's got a few little nice bits there for it to shoot off of, yeah, so that will make a good plant. If you want a quick example, because it will literally just grow from almost nothing, you could there you go, cut this bit off, very small little bit. This is a really nice bit, we want to make sure we kept him on. Again, this will grow into a full-size plant next year, have nice big flowers, decent size. So again, you can cut them small if you want, and then that's the rest of the other side of it. So you can carry on cutting just as long as you've got a piece of this and a piece of that. You should hopefully have flowers on every single one, because obviously you want the flowers more than the leaves with the dahlias. But again, that's just making them smaller again, chopping half into what you had. So another thing just to think about as well while doing it, if you're using a saw or a knife, make sure you're holding it higher than the blade so you can't cut your fingers. So obviously it takes a little bit of getting the hang of. It's worth putting a chopping board or something underneath in case it slips. And obviously when you're cutting it, make sure you're cutting it down and away from yourself. You don't want to end up causing yourself a mischief. Alright, so that's about it. The only thing to basically to go through now is in terms of storage. These ones are not being stored for a long amount of time. I'm basically going to dry these out over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then I'm going to put them in pots and I'm going to grow them inside. So it's not going to take too long until these have actually got leaves on. So I'm just going to wash them down a little bit more, leave them to dry out. If you're storing them somewhere, store them somewhere reasonably cold. Reasonably cold. You want to store them somewhere dry, and ideally wrap them up in newspaper or fleece and put them in a box somewhere. Alright, I won't go through that because, well, I can wrap them in newspaper actually, just to show you, because obviously you don't want to put too much pressure on them. So when you do wrap them in newspaper, do it nice and gently and then put them in. You don't want to squash them down because you might end up either snapping that off or that off. Alright, so you want to keep them intact. Alright, so I guess that would be the best way to do, just get rid of the loose bits, the best way to do it. Wrap it up nice and gently, and then if you're doing it, let's say if you get an early frost and you're digging them up like in November, maybe sort of every month or two, just open them up, have a quick look, make sure you haven't had a load of insect damage. And obviously if one's been ravaged by insects or something doesn't look right, throw the one out that looks bad and protect the rest. Alright, so that's about it. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you want to follow the journey and see how they grow on, and then how to do the cuttings, and then how to look after them going through the year. Anyway, that's the start of the dahlia videos, and obviously we'll be uploading a lot more throughout the year, so you can learn how to do everything and save yourself a few pennies and produce some plants for yourself or some friends or neighbours or anyone else you can think of. Alright, thanks a lot for watching the video. Look forward to seeing you next one. Thank you. Bye bye.